Welcome to It's Base, a cultural rebellion against the woke. I'm your host, Prozac God, and here at It's Base, we focus on building culture, regularly doing game jams every quarter. We also promote game-related content, and here today, we have Cult Games with us, the author of The Great Rebellion, Roland and Edmund.
Hi there.
And
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi
We
there.
also have with us an excellent guest co-host, dannphan. That's Trisha and Adam. Trisha and Adam, why don't you guys give a quick shout-out introduction for yourselves?
Hello, everybody. I'm a comic artist and I guess publisher for Burning Star Comics. Adam's an author. And I have my own YouTube channel where I review comics. And we also do a YouTube channel together where we do gaming streams. And we played through all of the Great Rebellion.
Yeah. Right
It's a good game.
So, yeah, with Edmund here and Roland, we, you guys made a pretty awesome game. Aaron also is up there from the Legends of Boom. Sorry.
How y'all doing?
How are you doing
Hello
today?
there.
Good.
All right. So yeah, I guess let's get into it. Tell us about the game and kind of give a bit of a introduction of what you guys are all about.
All right. So, should I start or Edmund? Do you want to start? I think Edmund. Are you still? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think you should go for it, mate.
All right. So, I'm Roland. I'm the main dev of the Great Rebellion. Our let's say, shall we say, non-woke or anti-woke, whatever, based cyberpunk retro roguelike shooter. Yeah, I think those are all the adjectives. We made this game. We released in February, and we have seen quite positive reception to it, and that's the gist of it. I did mostly game design, programming, some of the art, I will hand over now to Edmund, who also played a substantial role in making the game.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of adjectives to put in front of a running gun, weirdly. But yeah, no, I was on board for writing the story, all the jokes in it and stuff, which was a bit of a weird experience. You spend 2 years writing all of that, and you don't know if it's going to fall absolutely flat once people look at it. So it was a lot of relief, actually, once people were on live streams laughing and such. But I picked up a lot along the way. So I did a lot of pixel art throughout the game and various sort of production roles. We've had to market it ourselves and stuff, so it's been a real sort of pitch in wherever you can effort.
Yeah, we basically had no real, especially when it came to marketing, I'll be honest here, we had no real idea what we were doing. So we just, we released the game and we tried to do some marketing before, but, definitely not enough. And we had to then learn the ropes as we went along, and basically we are still learning it. So that's marketing is at least as much work as actually making the game. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty common experience that people run into is learning that when you make something creative, half your job is you now have just elected to begin a marketing job.
Yeah,
Now you have to So
pretty much, yeah. It's actually making this thing is kind of the bare minimum, and then you have to market it. That's what actually will then kind of decide how it goes. Yeah. So that's a lesson we had to learn, as we hit the ground running. But
Big
all in
word of
all,
mouth.
it went well, better than expected. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At least with video games, you have the big word of mouth advantage because someone will stream for hours playing through the game, but nobody streams them reading a book,
Yeah,
So,
that's true. That's true. I mean, no,
Pick that up. That sounds like a good project plan.
yeah.
And
Sorry, yeah. Didn't...
oh no, I was gonna say, Edmund. That means one of my questions I wanted to ask was, who wrote the terminal in the beginning?
That was Edmund. Edmund wrote all the. He's the funny, the humor person because I'm German, right? So humor is not my strength. So we had to get somebody from the UK who knows all that stuff.
Yeah, they do have a joke. They do have at least a joke in Germany.
Yeah, we have one joke, but I'm not going to tell it now.
For Anglo-Saxons, it's in the genes. Yeah, that was sort of weird. It came about the terminal stuff as well, because originally we were looking at having branching dialogue throughout the game. Roland made that entire system, but then we never really got around to being able to implement that and having the time to go down that route, you know. So the terminal was like the last vestige.
There's a lot of stuff that landed on the cutting room floor, yeah.
It felt like a cutting room floor little thing.
Is there any of the good secrets that you can share with us that like kind of that could have made it in that didn't?
There's a lot. Like I mean, there's that UFO right in the hub level, and it kind of features in the final boss fight. But we actually, or I would have really loved to. The whole thing was inspired by Sonic the Hedgehog 2. You know, there's that part where Sonic is on that biplane, and you stand on the wings, and that was kind of the inspiration to do that, but like with the UFO, and we wanted to have like shoot 'em up style levels between the levels. Yeah, that never really got realized, but maybe
it was tricky, right? So first of all, you've got a very small team. At the time, we were running on about 30 grand between the lot of us for like 2 years, right? So it really boiled down to like, what could we realistically do in the time that we had? Roland was the only one really truly full-time, and to this day he's the only one that's like truly on it full-time every single day, 8.5 hours a day without fail, you know. So it was more pulling together who you can, when you can, from various disciplines, right? So a lot just had to go, and not to create too much of a sub story of it because Roland doesn't like to, but once he got cancer and stuff and he was in hospital for months, wasn't it, in the end, going through all your treatment and everything, there was just so much where Roland and I had to have meetings, and you know, energy wise he only had sort of like an hour he could talk before he was completely done for the day. But it was really going through and downsizing everything that we'd originally sort of planned and saying, right, what can we realistically actually do to make something really tight and cohesive?
Yeah, that was obviously, yeah, as I said, I don't want to make the whole sob story and everything, but I was diagnosed with cancer, and then I was basically like more or less, you know, incapacitated for like almost half a year or so. I mean, I always worked constantly throughout the whole thing. Quite honestly, it also helped me to have something to focus on. But of course, it delayed everything, and we had to cut some stuff. We wanted to have, you know, more levels, more boss enemies.
Playable characters was another thing.
Yes,
I always really liked the idea we never got around to as well, was like the at the beginning of the game there'd be a character creator, but no matter what sex you chose, that locked in your gender as being the same as the sex that you chose as well. So there was no actual way of changing things like that. There was like small little jokes we were going to have in there. Just, you know, you can get to the point where you go, what's it worth for a chuckle?
Yeah,
it makes sense that there was going to be more characters because there's all these people that you collect. Those were all like references that I just wasn't getting, because I got the golden one, right? But I other people that I guess they would have been playable characters at one point.
No, these were always intended to be like characters that you can find and that will give you some kind of bonus. We were thinking about maybe making them do more stuff, but eventually we just went with what ended up in the game. We definitely want to have like multiple playable characters with different, you know, stats and everything. But yeah, that got cut, and yeah, those unlockable characters are all like either references to real life people. One of them is a reference to Sam Hyde. I can say that much. And
the Sam Hyde one came about because we were watching his TED Talk thing, right, where he did Paradigm Shift 2077. The idea being everything that changes in the future.
Basically, like half of his lines are literally from that TED Talk.
And we're like, we might as well just put that in.
Yeah, I think I do it now. That's
amazing.
Like, my favorite one in there, where he's like, Soda Stream is going to do what the 3D printer is going to do for guns. Like, that always really got me.
Yeah, well, one line in the game is where he says, like in the TED Talk, Sam Hyde said, you know, like kind of like.
Continue. No, sorry about that.
Sorry. Okay. No, so at this whole TED Talk thing, like at one point he just says all these like, you know, completely wild predictions for the future, and then he just says like, you know, kind of a deadpan voice, video games will get more realistic. And then one line that the character in the game says is, "Video games did indeed get more realistic." And yeah, that's also a reference. Anyway, yeah.
I thought the whole like Europa base was a cool concept because on one hand the game is like anti-woke, but it's not just like the game doesn't just have like negative energy to it. There's also like this constructive thing you're doing where you're like rebuilding the home base. You're kind of, you know, has like a kind of energy to it too.
Definitely, we wanted that to be in there because it's really easy to make like some sort of like black pill thing, and the whole thing is just depressive sort of doom scrolling. But that's not really the point of where we wanted to go with it. We wanted to actually show like a constructive view of the future, and that there is actually, quote unquote, a paradigm shift occurring with things. So yeah, we wanted to make sure it wasn't like this depressive thing. We wanted to actually be fun and actually have like hope in it. And then it was always important to us to like show this element, you know. A lot of European identity sort of history and stuff can get sort of quite blasé attacked in media or by like a certain woke crowd or whatever. So it was like, well, you know, if we're going to make a big sale on Xbox saying like buy black created games or something, why not have something actually where it is saying we also are a people here and we also have some history and let's also show that, and let's showcase historical characters and saints and whatever else, right? So Europa was just that easy one for people to grasp immediately as like who's going to be the hero of it then if it's a cyberpunk set in Europe, which they're not normally. They're like America or they're China or something, or Japan, right? So it was like, okay, if one's in Europe, then let's do that. And it was also like this weird amalgamation Roland had always been really keen on putting sort of mythological figures and characters of Europe within it, and it was sort of inspired by the toppling of statues all across Europe and America, right? And it was like, okay, well, if people are going to forget about these things or not believe in them, then maybe that's having an effect. And if we show it in the game, like you're actually resurrecting these things or bringing them back, there is a spirit to these things, and those can help you, guide you, they can be educational for you, whatever it is, then we shouldn't forget about those heroes. We should look at them.
Yeah, the whole thing was that's also kind of important for me personally. Is I don't like to be like just purely like reactionary, you know, just like the return to tradition crowd or something. It's like I want to also like I'm not like anti-technology or whatever, you know. I think it's this amalgamation of like the old and the new, and you know, that's like where I wanted to go, you know, like not just be like purely like techno optimist or something, but also not just being like purely whatever like backwards facing.
Because in like a nutshell, like the game believes. Sorry.
We have a question here from Soslo. He's going to jump up here. This is Aaron from Legends of Boom.
Hey, I figured I'd just barge in right at the beginning and then ask a question. Out, But this is for largely Edmund. Legends of Boom. Our game is comical as well. We've written a lot of comedy for it, and I was just curious what your process was for. You go about writing these lines, bits. Some things are very rooted in time and space, where it decays as we go on and people forget about that thing. How do you choose the reference elements and decide what's going to have legs?
Right. So for us, it came down to future proofing. So we didn't want to be focused on the current thing. Like at one point, talking of like cutting room floor stuff, there was like a vaccine jab sort of level, and it was like a church of a vaccine underground and stuff. We eventually replaced it with the Beyond Human level, about creating like synthetic foods out of questionable things, if it's people or what, but we very much didn't want to just stick to something that's the current thing, because it's not going to age well, and fundamentally you're going to look back on it as an incredibly dated idea or a certain paradigm of a certain time. The other thing is with comedy that's really quite tough is you will laugh at Clown World or whatever it may be 1,000 times over with your friends, be it at the pub, be it at the bar, whatever. You'll laugh about it on voice chat. You will have 1,000 jokes about it, and it comes to putting it onto a white page, and suddenly you're thinking, what's funny and how do I get there? Because there's a context you've created with friends, right? Some of it is lean into that context already, because actually a lot of people are there with you as well already. They do get these jokes. They do get the same things as you via the sort of mimetic nature of online culture. So don't think I have to explain every joke from the ground up to these people because they're not in my friendship group or something. The fact is, very few experiences are exclusive to yourself. So yeah, that was sort of one element. The other one, big time, honestly, was Notepad. I had a tiny little notepad for absolutely ages in my coat pocket, and I did just note phrases or words where I was like, that will remind me, that is something that we've been laughing at, actually. That is a way that you can nicely sum up this sort of joke. And memes are really good for that because memes, of course, condense down large-scale political issues to something really small. Be it like an abortion thing, you've got one person on one end of the spectrum saying an argument, and then you've got like a female Chad or something saying like baby making machine goes brr. You just put that in, you take those condensed humorous things that speak to an entire civilization and get those down, and that's what memes do really well at. So I did use those as a lot of influence, to be honest.
I think about that answer. What I like about it is, if you guys remember, there's like some graffiti that they found at like Pompeii, and I don't remember what it was, but it was just they like basically were cursing out some local politician or some guy, and it like stands the test of time because we all know what that feeling was. Like it's always interesting to like, yeah, I like that answer a lot. That's really interesting.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that. Thanks again for barging in at the beginning there so slow. So yeah, I guess tell us more about kind of the journey you guys took to get into game development, and kind of what kind of inspired you to go this path and build the game you did.
Yeah, so for me personally, I mean, I've been just interested in game development for like a really long time. I've done it as a hobby thing. I worked at a gaming company, and I don't know, games were just always. I don't know how it is today, quite honest, like to grow up today and just like games being like everywhere. I'm not sure what that is like, if they are this mainstream, because I remember when I was a kid or when I was a teenager and I kind of quote unquote discovered games, they were a very niche thing that only few people actually were into, and there was no internet.
I think even more so in Europe than America, to be honest, as well.
Yeah, probably. And there were like some, you got some bits and pieces from magazines, but it was all very like esoteric in a way, and fascinating. It was like this, like I stumbled upon this like fascinating world, so to say.
How old are you? Do you remember?
Yeah, I must have been around 7 or 8 or so. I do remember it started with my older brother's Commodore Amiga, yeah, it was a pretty good era. A little bit past the C64 era. I guess, yeah, it must have been around like 1991 when I got into video games.
For me, it was the Nintendo 64, and then only one kid knew what video games were until like 4th grade, or until like fifth, until I was like out of elementary school. And so it was like one kid knew what they were, and then all of a sudden all the other kids knew it. All of a sudden it was like this big explosion. Everybody knew what video games were. It was like this
yeah, it was a bit like, I don't know, not weird, but let's say it was interesting to see how this evolved from this like niche thing to like this complete mainstream, and also how it changed video games, because obviously games nowadays, or at least like the big AAA games, are very different from the games that came out back then. And I do remember it was like, there was my older brother, he's 6 years older, so he was already like a bit older, and his friends also, like I kind of looked up to these guys as like the cool guys. There was a guy that he was friends with who was like a metal guy, long hair, metal t-shirts, kind of like you. And
I was going to ask the name for your company, by the way.
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Real quick, let me interject 1 second. We do have a question that we need to bring up here.
Right.
G-Bird has one from the audience here. So they ask, are you guys working on a game called The Great Rebellion, and is it a Metroidvania-like? And I think those are, and I guess to make the question a little bit more expansive, why did you choose the Metroidvania platform, like that style?
I mean, it's not really a Metroidvania. It's a roguelike. It doesn't really have the whole Metroidvania thing where you have to like unlock abilities or upgrades or whatever so you can progress. It's the roguelike, or more like roguelite design, where you like levels are randomly generated. When you die, you have to restart. You can keep some permanent upgrades, but the rest gets reset. And the main reason why I chose that is because I played a lot of roguelike games at the time. I played Enter the Gungeon a lot, the Nuclear Throne, some Binding of Isaac, and I was just fascinated by procedural level generation. It was nothing I have done before. It was a new thing, and I wanted to try it out. So that's basically it.
I mean, it's worth mentioning as well. Like TGR, when we first started it, was top down. So when I first joined, it was Roland and I, and the guy does the music basically. And I was just offering a little bit of feedback at the time before getting properly involved. And yeah, it was top down. It was very much like inspired by Into the Gungeon. And the more we talked about it, being a spiritual successor to one of Roland's previous like freeware games, the more we sort of decided, let's go back to it being a side scroller then, but be more complex. And sort of in a real nutshell, the idea was Enter the Gungeon, but from a side scrolling perspective.
I like that.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, a lot of people always compare our game to Neon Abyss, and I can see why they do that. But actually, I only played Neon Abyss quite some time when we were already like into the game's development, and I never played it as much as like the top-down roguelikes that inspired me. It just kind of like it happened like that because I crossed like the previous game, which was a platformer, with like the roguelike concept, and also the cyberpunk aesthetics were also basically taken from that previous game, Heimat Defender. So that's how it came out, and yeah, I can see why people always compare our game to Neon Abyss. Right.
We have another question here from the It's Base crew. We have question game fans. Are you, as artists yourselves, what is your take on the Great Rebellion style? That's a good one. I like that.
Well, I definitely have a soft spot for the old school style pixel games, and I think you got that like neon sci-fi across very well, while also showing us some of the like horror dystopian stuff, especially in the background art.
Yeah, especially like the first level or so. It's like they really captured the current culture, but put into cyberpunk.
Yeah, for sure.
How did you guys balance the difficulty of the game while developing it? How did that come across?
Yeah, I'll give maybe Edmund. That's more for you because you were doing a lot of the playtesting and the QA.
Yeah, I mean, the general rule of thumb, right, is the lead developer, i.e. Roland, is always going to find the game easier than other people because you've been living with it, it's your baby, and you can't see the wood through the trees. So coming on as QA, I mean, I worked in QA for like 6 years before, and then have done like production work for like another 3. So, you know, I well and truly had my feet under the table when it came to QA work. But it was just a case of playtest, see what's actually doable. The other thing was focus groups. So one of my best friends would often play the game, and he's a pretty good gamer, but it's not something he does all the time. But, you know, if you stick him in front of Call of Duty or Battlefield, he'll be mid-table or something, you know. So he was a good gauge for, like, what is the average guy picking this up going to be like? And then the sort of furthest flung example was my wife would then play it. And again, you can put her in a squad on a game and she's fine, but she's not going to sit there playing Dark Souls by herself or something. So she was a really good gauge to see what was speaking to the player, if she knew where to go, if she knew what to shoot at when, and if she was able to figure out enemy patterns and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it goes back to like Abram Games, who's like the grandfather of graphic design. He did like all the old Guinness logos with the pelican on the peregrine, but he used to show everything to his grandchildren, and if they didn't get it in a second, he'd scrap it. And he was like, right, I'm not going to bother with that then, and I'll continue with a new design. So it's sort of a similar thing. If she wasn't really grasping it, we'd go, okay, we need to change that and make it clearer to the player, but we also didn't want to handhold like AAA putting yellow paint on everything you can climb.
Yeah, I do something similar. My brother hates that I tell people this, but he's kind of a bad. He has like kind of bad reading comprehension. Like he reads a lot, but it's just like if a line is slightly off, it like throws him off completely. And so if I'm not sure about a particular like paragraph, because I've been editing it too much to the point where I can't like you said, I can't see the wood through the trees. It's so abstract to me. I'll show him the paragraph and then I'll ask him to tell me where he gets stuck, and he's a good canary in a coal mine for it.
Yeah, tell me about it. I'm quite severely dyslexic as well as being a writer, so I read for England. I read like a book a week sort of thing. But at the same time, my understanding of phonics is like a child. So yeah, like there's a lot of handing it over to my wife, who's an English teacher, and her checking it back over to see if what I've actually written makes any sense to anyone.
So, game fans down there, you guys, you played through the game. So the question I have to you guys is, where did you find the places that were difficult or places that you enjoyed a lot? Like, where are some of your favorite spots in the game? We'll start there.
Well, I'm not a very good gamer, so I found a lot of difficult spots. We were doing the thing where once you die, you pass the controller to the other person.
And I suck at.
You did much better than me.
No, I did, but I suck at these kinds of games. Thank God there wasn't like a lot of like platforming to do, but well, I think the difficulty all melted away as soon as I got the I don't know what it was. Was it like the White Boy Summer power up or something where it shoots waves out of you?
Oh,
like
yeah,
water
right.
waves? Yeah. Okay, so then
that was super powerful.
Maybe it's a bit overpowered. I don't know. We need to nerf it a bit.
Whoa.
No. Don't take away. I need it. I feel like a piece of me is missing now because I tried to do New Game Plus, or not New Game Plus, but like start it over and get the true ending from the higher difficulty. And then I realized there's only like one save slot. So now I don't have my, I had a bunch of like extra dashes from some other power up. So I was like, I didn't even shoot the final boss. I was just dashing around like back and forth.
We've heard that a few times. We have noted that about the save slots because we've had a few people like put in super chats about it and all sorts.
I mean, I did it intentionally because, like, I don't know. For me, that's just like the old school roguelike design.
Yeah,
you have one save spot and that's it. But I guess it's
when you got two modes, it's a bit difficult. Yeah, it becomes a bit different.
Because we originally we didn't have any difficulty modes or whatever. But we then came to like the realization that it's just like not everybody is gonna be like this like relatively punishing design of a roguelike game. We actually had some people playtesting who thought that's basically like a bug, like, wait, did it now crash? Why do I have to start all over again? So we tried to like soften it a little bit by putting in this like training mode, as I then called it, where you can replay levels as often as you want, and the different difficulty modes. And eventually I think we kind of like got to a point where like everybody, even if they don't play roguelikes normally, is gonna be okay.
Well, you're more of a purist, aren't you? Like, because you're like 10 years my senior, and it's like you are so much more of a purist of design, because the original game was very much a hardcore roguelike, and it slowly morphed into a roguelite because I kept sort of just feeding you. I'm bang on between millennial and Gen Z, and like I kept feeding you what those players expect and what they're used to and what they're going to find they want to return to actually and want to try again. And it took a lot of convincing, but like we back and forthed about it a lot because we've also got like our very core fan base, which at the time, of course, before this had some commercial success, was really the fan base we had. But that core fan base, they're pretty hardcore gamers, so they do expect like a certain level of purity. So it was always balancing a tightrope between new users and the fan base that we already had, and I think we struck a really good one.
I think you did strike a good balance because you have the true ending is hidden behind the real difficulty, right? But I still
that's kind of that's kind of a bit of a throwback also to what like older older classic console games used to do, that you have to, if you want to see the real ending, you have to play on hard. And I'm happy that Edmund eventually convinced me to put in these elements, because I like this more purist. Like, I actually don't really like it that much or at least at the time I didn't like it that much, but I can see the appeal now. Let's put it like that. If you put in a lot of upgrades and you can just kind of like level up your character and get a lot of like additional like weapons and whatnot. I mean, basically, I like to keep it more like purely skill based. It's like either you're good at the game or you're not, and you're gonna die as often as you have to until you get good at it, basically. So that was my original approach. But it's you can play the game this way if you want to still, but yeah, it definitely was the right decision to put in these other mechanics.
It's hard to suck at a game when you're streaming because like dying over and over again and like having no, like, at least when I was sucking at the game and we were streaming, I was picking up upgrades and I was like, don't worry guys, you're only gonna have to see me do this mission like 20 more times and then I'll have enough upgrades.
We have another question that came in, guys, real quick, from Westman Game, Studio Dynamo Storm. What was the game fans' favorite boss, music track, and stage?
The music was sick, but I can't remember.
Well, you wouldn't know the names of the songs, right?
No, and I wouldn't remember the stages. I remember I got lost.
I remember I really liked the mall stage.
Oh, yeah.
That was super cool looking.
Yeah, this is like future funk.
Yeah, it sounds like TV shopping or something crossed with future funk. I like that.
The very first stage had like, it felt like the game was like, hey, by the way, our music is sick, so just hey, like,
yeah. The first
it's hard
time
to remember which boss was my favorite. I remember being terrified of Yas Queen though.
Oh god, that's
the guy who did the animation for that was actually like, I think he was legitimately suffering. Like he said, like, oh my god, do I have to do this?
Yeah,
he was so happy when he finally finished the twerking animation and so on. I think it
adds another it adds another roguelike element because you can only like see that so many times before you just die.
But in real life,
we're really blessed with like the guy does all of our music, Retro Rebel. You can find him on Spotify and everything, with YouTube and such. But he's this German lad in his 20s, and incredibly talented. We've been really blessed to have just ran in the same circles so as to run into him, but honestly, I've been playing 80s Overdrive on Xbox and it's fun. It's just this sort of racing game, but it's kind of a vehicle to push this guy's synthwave music. And I'm not gonna lie, like Retro's knocks spots off of it. It really does. He's genuinely one of my favorite synthwave artists. But yeah, once you get that first combat music kick in the first level, man, that really slaps.
Yeah,
it was actually his idea to put in the dynamic soundtrack that adapts to the game situation and to the gameplay. And yeah, we put actually also quite some effort into it. It was like, it's not just like crossfading between two different tracks. Like Retro actually wrote all the fills and the transitions for each point in the song where you can like change it. So that was for him a lot of extra work actually to make all these transitions work. And yeah, I guess it paid off because everybody praises the soundtrack. But yeah.
People in chat were mentioning like we would talk to the chat for a bit and then we go back to playing and they'd be like, oh shit, that combat music coming back in.
All right, let me get you another question here from Caveman for the whole cast. What are the top games in your backlog? Well, that's I'll let you guys go first. I'm terrible at my backlog.
So should be.
How about Roland? I'm calling out Roland. Roland goes first. What's your games in your backlog?
Okay, so currently I'm once again replaying Vampire Bloodlines, this time with the Clown Quest mod. I like to play it together with my wife. She usually, she's watching and I have to play, and that's always a lot of fun. And what else am I currently playing? I am playing Space Marine 2, and I mean, those are like the main games I've been playing actually over the last time. Yeah.
What do you think about Space Marine 2, by the way? Because I know the writer was all on Twitter being, woke and whatever, but then people were very positive about the game, so I haven't looked into it at all, but I just like.
Well, I mean, it's it obviously has like the thing where like your squad is like perfectly diverse. You have like a black guy, an Asian guy, and a white guy, and everything is like perfectly
Okay.
perfectly balanced in that way. And you have
Okay.
the strong female, like the guardsman leader, the military leader, who has like a weird. I'm still not sure what it's exactly supposed to be. Maybe Indian. I'm not sure accent. So you got these elements in there, but I personally feel like it's a little bit like, that's like they gave, that's like the pound of flesh they had to give in order to be left alone or something. That's a,
Also, it's like that
Yeah.
80s movie style, right? Like you've got that in Predator, or you've got that in Die Hard or something. So I think it harkens back to a time where they actually did that in quite a natural way. So I think that's why it's been largely just excused, because it doesn't feel like shoehorned the same as other stuff, to be fair.
yeah, it feels relatively organic, and it's like whatever. So the game is good. It's unapologetic. It's Warhammer. Everybody's running around the whole time being like, for the Emperor and honor this and duty that, and it's pretty based, and I like it. And it's also just a well-made game. It's well optimized. It has like a ton of enemies at the same time, and it doesn't slow down and so on. So I don't know. I think it's like it has this like, it feels like the old games. It feels like games felt back in the day a bit. Yeah, it's a bit of a throwback in that sense. So yeah, that's Space Marine 2. And actually other games I've been playing a lot recently have been Death Must Die and the Deep Rock Galactic Survivor. Like I kind of like those survival games.
I like Deep Rock Galactic when it came out. Me and my friends played it obsessively for like 6 months.
Yeah, like I actually have to say I never played it. I'm just playing the survivors like that they made from the Deep Rock Galactics. And yeah, I don't know. They're just very well made. Also, Death Must Die is like a really good one. So these are probably my top 2 survivors likes, which I've been playing quite a bit. And then another game I play currently that I also really like is Turbo Overkill. I think it's like my favorite among all the boomer shooters that came out in the last years.
You're not really a
That's my
backlog
backlog.
guy, are you? You play a few things, but you don't really like plan your backlog the same as other people do.
No, I don't actually do that. I just have a few games. I mean, I do have a backlog of games I want to eventually play, such as, for instance, Wasteland 2, which I have been, not play, which is kind of like on my list for I don't know how many years at this point.
It's cool. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do want to play Rogue Trader, like the Warhammer RPG. I've heard good things about it. But yeah, these other games were the games I'm actually playing at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, for me at the moment, I'm actually going through playing Undertale for the first time. I have only played about an hour, and I keep being told that I have to play Undertale. And so far, it's been interesting, definitely different. And then the other one that I've been playing, I like a lot of the smaller indie titles. There's one called Love. It's on Steam. It's like a green pixel art, like a platformer, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. It plays really well on my Steam Deck, so I like it a lot. What about you, game fans? What do you guys got going on for backlog?
We were playing.
We were checking out some other games like Abathor, and
Yeah,
that was pretty fun.
it was. It's like, I guess backlog is like a game you've been meaning to get to that you haven't gotten to. So I guess fitting that definition, I guess Final Fantasy X. I've played through it, but we were playing through it together and we never finished it.
There's a lot of games that we haven't actually finished playthroughs of on the Game Fans channel.
Yeah. And
for one reason or another.
And then I've been meaning to go back and finish playing through the sequel to Deus Ex Human Revolution. Is that Mankind Divided, where you're like in Prague or something. And then The Witcher 3 I never finished. So I've been meaning to go back and do those, but
Yeah. I'd like to finish Ender Lilies at some point.
is it the one that's all red? Is that the platform?
No.
Okay.
You're thinking of 4, I think. I don't know.
Tell me about it. The Witcher has been like something I've been trying to complete since 2015 or something. I think I'm far in it, but it's just a case of every time I keep going back, it's really to get to Blood and Wine, but I haven't even managed to finish the main story to this day.
Oh yeah, everyone talks about the DLC being super good. I just go back in and then I take everyone's money in Gwent, and then I just stop playing.
Yeah, I started with Witcher 2 because I wanted to play them chronologically, but everybody said I should skip on the first part. I don't know if that
The first
what I
one's not
heard.
that good, but
I heard it's a
Witcher
bit
2
like
my
janky
favorite.
and
Yeah.
yeah. So I really like it, but then I have to continue playing it. I played it like not super far, and I want to play
Witcher
through
2
Witcher 2, and then finally eventually get to Witcher 3, maybe in like 5 years or so.
Controversially, I like the second one more, but
Yeah, I heard that opinion.
Another question from the audience here. Fiasco's question: what's the theme of the game? Like the point of the story for it to be named the Great Rebellion?
Right. So, the game has like this dystopian theme going on. It plays in a dystopian cyberpunk future where people are, enslaved and mind controlled by chips in their heads by like a big evil corporation that controls everything. And so the theme of the game is like, it follows a bunch of rebels who rebel against this system. So it landed itself naturally, and I mean there is also a bit like the obvious reference to the Great Reset. So like the answer to that was like the Great Rebellion against it. That was one element of it.
There's a riff, it's a bit of a riff on like the hyper politicization of anything becomes the great whatever. So it's like there's a bit of a sort of tongue-in-cheek joke to it as well.
Yeah, it's a
also
bit self-ironic, and it sounds cool. Right.
So there was some controversy surrounding the game. Roland, do you have some stuff to fill us in on that? And how were some publishing woes, I heard?
Yeah, so okay, I have to like maybe go back a little bit to like our whole story. So I and that's not like something I make a secret out of or something. I've been a political activist before I got into this whole like game dev thing. I was doing like activism, like like banner drops and putting up stickers and that kind of stuff back in 2015 when the whole like migration crisis thing was going on in Europe, and there were all these Islamist terror attacks and all that stuff. That was something that kind of red pilled me. So I eventually decided at some point to like basically make a political game, and so that was how my first game, which I just released as freeware, Hammer Defender, came to be, which was more political than the Great Rebellion, more overtly political, and that caused a bit of a controversy, and there were like articles written about the evil far-right game and all the usual blah blah blah. I mean, it's people that actually played the game where then I got like a lot of feedback like that they were surprised like that it's actually this harmless, because from what they read about it they thought it must be like genocide simulator or something.
It's like with the old GTA, right, where they said you get more points if you shoot a hooker in the head, even though that was never true. There are masses of articles about that first game that are just categorically false. It's staggering.
Yeah, they did what they always do. So, but we got a bit of a, let's say, reputation because of that. And when we then released our second game, and that first game actually was put on like the so-called Index of Youth Endangering Media in Germany, which is a thing that has been there for like a long time. It's like a specific German law that you can like things are not really banned, but they are on this list. And it means that you're not allowed to advertise for them publicly. You're not allowed to sell it to minors, etc. And it was originally intended for like, pornographic stuff or like extremely violent movies and such things. And it has been applied very liberally for video games. For instance, Doom was on that list for a very long time. Half-Life was on that list, Unreal Tournament. All these games were on the list of youth endangering media in Germany for a very long time. I think Half-Life has only been taken off of it a few years ago. Everybody was always making fun of that. It has kind of become a meme. Like you were not allowed to say the names of these games back in the 90s. I remember all the gaming magazines. They didn't write Doom when they talked about the game. They had to like use a different word like boom or boom or room or something like that, and it was very silly. And yeah, so that's that law, and it has also been applied for, let's say, political censorship in recent years. That's a bit of a newer phenomenon, let's say. So that was the story of our first game. Then we made the Great Rebellion, And we actually, it's less overly political, not just because we wanted to make sure we don't get on that list again, which we didn't, but also because we just thought okay, we don't want to repeat it gets boring. Like, people actually want to have good games. They don't want to be lectured. I mean, obviously there is the political element to this game, but it was very important for us to actually make a good game. And so we turned it a bit back.
Lecturing is hidden as well. We've got a few characters like Herodotus and Philosophus. You don't have to talk to them. We made anything too ideological, political, or philosophical. We put all of that on optional content because you just want to play a game and blast some monsters,
Right. So we tried to make it so that you could play the game without all that stuff. But still, apparently, simply because of who we are, the game was at least taken off the German Steam store. And that was, I cannot tell you exactly why, because Steam never really told us. It went like this. One day we just noticed it was not available in Germany anymore. And then we got a message from Steam saying, we found content in your game which we believe may not be allowed in Germany. I'm pretty sure that was the phrasing. Okay.
Well, the game is fuck, so
okay, but
no, honestly, it's a mystery. I don't know what it could have been. It's a real mystery, actually.
Yeah, I wonder.
So
I get that, but it's you could at least tell us what exactly it was that you have an objection against or something.
If I had to guess, you had some agent for whatever the German KGB is, go in and then go to the computer in the beginning and then hit rent sexual fulfillment. And it's yikes. Yikes! You're attracted to girls your age that are not morbidly obese. We've helped you out. We've downloaded 2 terabytes of gay chubby porn onto your computer.
That's weird. They're allowed to put it all out there, all over their Twitter and whatever, But the second we put the same thing out there, we're in trouble.
I don't know. I thought they are into this kind of stuff. Like what?
Yikes was the perfect. Really captured that BuzzFeed condescending yikes. Oh.
Yeah.
Here
are 10 reasons why the Great Rebellion has to be banned in Germany. You won't believe number 5 or so. Yeah.
Is that, by the way, a reference to Arby and the Chief by any chance? The 2 terabytes of porn?
No.
There's some random episode. I used to walk home from school and these kids would be watching that on their phones, and there was some episode where the guy was like, "Oh, why am I losing in Halo?" And it was "Oh, stop downloading 2 terabytes of porn." And they show the browser and it has a download that's just 2 terabytes. It says porn.
Oh god!
And it's a reference to things like the Vegas shooter, right? Whenever these people are caught or hired by the FBI, whatever the hell happens, they always happen to find about 2 terabytes of content, and I've always just been staggered by how much content you could possibly need. So it was more a reference to that. I thought, what would be an over-the-top amount of content? And I was like, well, the FBI always claim it's 2 terabytes.
Well, it's because that's the standard size hard drive they buy. They just have to fill it up. It's
that's just like the shooter creation starter pack that your FBI agent gets.
We actually have a guest hanging out here in chat. It's George is gonna ask us a question live. We can get him up here. Hey George, what do you got for us?
Hello.
So this is kind of a multifaceted question. It's just something I was thinking about, seeing how we got all y'all up here. The first portion of it would be throughout time that y'all have been developing, throughout time that y'all have been part of this industry itself. Working alone, working in teams, what are the goods, what are the bads? Stuff along those lines. Second facet of it, while working on stuff like this, be it a project, be it a portion of a project, whatever you want to, give an example of. I'm part of a lot of communities where burnout tends to be the main thing that kills a lot of us. What's one way that y'all try to mitigate it? I know sometimes it can't be avoided entirely, but what are some ways that, especially with the amount of fledgling development communities that are coming up, how do we mitigate this? And then I guess The last one would be for a lot of the people that join these communities, but it's not really for a development, mainly just to be part of the community itself, give, oh, you guys doing good, stuff like that. How do you get those that are curious? You can tell that they're curious about it. How do you give them that gentle push to get them to actually want to try a game jam, even if it's just, a day of developing on something that's not going to be much, but it's something? How do you give them that gentle push into it?
Going from the bottom up, as for how we would get someone into a game jam and such, we don't particularly. It's not something we really try to chase up or try to do for people, but we have done our own game jams, and we do just encourage that anyone comes with any experience. So we always say, basically, we don't mind if you can't code, man, because coding is a big scary word that puts a hell of a lot of people off because it feels like it might as well be a foreign language. So we immediately say, look, if you can write, if you can draw, whatever you think you can do a bit of, there is a place for you in this. And even if you can draw, there will be someone who can digitize that in some way, shape or form. So, I mean, that's how we sort of encourage that, is come along no matter what you think you can or can't do, and just be a part. So we've got, for instance, a guy on our team who's absolutely lovely American lad from Texas, and he does voiceover work for us. But other than that, he's no developer, but he's there because he still has comments, he still has ideas, he's still a valid part of the team, even though he's only got this one discipline within it, So that's always there as well. More heads are better sometimes. When it comes to team sizes and avoiding burnout, the way we avoid burnout is, first of all, we're quite family centered. So Roland will be in a meeting, and if he's got to go because his little boy is like crying or whatever, he does. If he has to go to take some stress away from his wife or something, he does. And we're very much always making ourselves able to say to someone, you go do that. This is not a corporate setting. Whereas obviously what often gets to people is the stress of expectation to be there 8.5 hours a day, whether there's work or not. So we try to mitigate some of that. If something is not relevant to people, they can go. They don't have to be in that meeting. So that's one thing we've done as well, is like structuring the team. You can seriously overstructure.
I think we have like an advantage in the sense that everybody who is like on our team really wants to be there, and we have like stuff beyond just like purely work related relationships that like kind of like bond us together, or like are like an intrinsic motivation for people why they want to work on this stuff. So we can get away with like not having, or with like having a bit less like of just like corporate approach or something. You do need structure, you definitely do. Like you can't just hope that like stuff automatically emerges or something through spontaneous self-organization. But it's just everybody who's on our team feels that they're not just like doing like a job or something, but like are part of something. I don't want it to sound like too pathos laden or something, but part of something bigger. They are working towards something that goes beyond just like earning a paycheck or something. I mean, implying we can pay people properly.
And we do a lot for them. So like there's a shitpost chat, because we want people to be able to talk, and that's not just about posting memes. It's about also posting to each other, I'm at this wedding, look at this awesome national park that it's next to. So we get to know each other visually and everything. We get to know about each other's lives a little bit. But then that also led into like we've played Space Marine together, we've had gaming nights, but again, we don't pressure people that they have to be there for it. But then likewise we did the other year, once we'd had success with the game, we spent money on flying everyone to Germany so that everyone could meet up. And our investor, who's an absolutely wonderful guy, really footed the bill for people on that. And he brought people in from America, and everyone who's in our team, from Danes to Americans to Scottish, whatever, everyone was flown into Germany. And we had a meet up for 2 days. We did sort of 5 hours of work, and the rest was leisure. Let's go around, let's go to some pubs together, let's look at some sites together. And that was amazing. People actually got rewarded for what they had done, which really means something. Whereas when you're part of like, I don't know, the Morrowind Skyrim modding scene, it's quite tough to reward everyone afterwards, because it's not something you can legally make money off of other than Patreon. So that was one element. But we have seen both sides of team size. So like we have structure. We do use a database for doing our bugs, for doing our tasking and stuff like that, so that people have a central hub. So we use UTrack for that. But you can overdo it. I've been part of PlayStation and other big studios that I won't name, and it's confluence hell. You end up in everything has to have a page created for it. Everything has to have a meeting about the next meeting.
Brother.
Yeah, and it gets bad. It gets really bad, and it ends up like people can't move through this like stickiness of bureaucracy that has to go through. Whereas I can say to Roland, "Don't you think this is an awesome idea? We can put it on a post-it note, and then we can do it." I can send it as a voicemail at 1 PM when I'm busy working in the countryside, and I think of an idea. We can do that. A big company can't. They have to get all this different permission. If you're a big indie company, you might even have to go over the CEO's desk. It becomes development hell to try to make something with that many people.
Yeah, I definitely see the advantages of like smaller teams, and I legitimately don't want us to grow beyond. Even if we were like, let's say, super successful with our next games and whatever, a man can dream. We probably don't want to like just grow exponentially or something. I think something between 10 or 20 people is like a good team size, and I don't actually want to be bigger, to be honest.
When I was in a
There's
team
no
of like
need
200-300 people, it was no one had permission to do anything, right? Because you've all got these really specific tiny roles. You're a tiny cog in a large machine. So any ideas you had, any writing ideas, any whatever, had to go over so many desks, so many heads. It was unbelievable. So you didn't have permission to say anything. And a lot of development teams set up a culture where certain departments can't comment. Partly because they'd get a lot of like crap comments, but can't even say a suggestion because they're not allowed. I have literally been places where if you had a suggestion and you put it in a chat or something or an email, you got told off. They would call you into an office and they would say, "Yeah, you've been emailing so and so. Why has that been happening?" So yeah, they create a really like stigmatized like atmosphere as well.
But yeah, but it's sorry, yeah.
No, I was just that sounds like what happened with whatever that like Sony game was. It was a Concord or something where it was like 500 million was spent on it, and it just like
Yeah.
Oh, game fans froze for a second there. But yeah, no, Concord was kind of a rough. That was a rough situation all around. I can't imagine how you ever recover from that, honestly. But
I mean, I think they didn't because like the team got shut down recently, didn't it?
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I mean, more like that. Yeah. So, real quick.
Sorry, I just wanted
to the end of it, but yeah, go ahead and roll it. What do you got?
No, I just wanted to add like because the before I forget it again, like the question was about like community and so on, and I just wanted to say like that us like our goal is not really to like build a community. I mean, we try to do that also, but like you have to kind of pick your battles, and we only have so much time and resources, and our main thing is developing games. So that's what we are focusing on. And I guess community building and all that, I think that would be more like probably a question for our hosts for the Based Game Jam guys, because that's kind of like their ballpark, so to say. Yeah, I just wanted to, add that.
Yeah, like we like to, the idea of contributing to culture through the just outreach to community or build community is kind of important. Like really the fight against sort of the woke mind virus as it is really just comes from each person's individual struggle, talking about how life should be, how we should all plan life out, how we should all live together, and not necessarily through like any particular one like process, but there's all sorts of different I guess answers to it. But the big thing is reach out to those who need, and be strong in your community, be the person who can help lead. And at the end of the day, that's all you really can do. So we're gonna shut things down. That we got no more questions here. I would say good shout out to Game Fans for joining us up with Trisha and Adam. Thanks for a wonderful co-host there. And then special thanks to Roland and Edmund with Cult Games. It's been a wonderful experience talking about your game, The Great Rebellion. You can follow all of us on itsbase.com. You can join our server at the Discord link at the bottom of the video there. And you can follow us on X at the It's Base Game Jam. And I think that's
if I could say one.
You guys anybody else want to do some shout outs? Game fans, you got something?
I just had one note. I often preach the idea of keeping a healthy mental diet. Like you consume too much like doomer stuff, or you a game is like fun, but it's the writing is kind of like woke slop or whatever, and it kind of pollutes your mentality. It's kind of like having junk food or something, right? And I think like a superfood is the Great Rebellion. I thought it was like, I thought the like thematic balance, like the Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
guess
people
that
will
kind of-
fast
Alright,
from
everybody.
food, right? But you need to fast for the eyes as well. You do.
Yeah, thanks.
I want to say thanks to everybody for joining us, and we're gonna go ahead and move it on to the Discord. If you guys want to join up in the general chat, we can just talk to people in the audience and the fans, and everybody that's in our Discord. So
Cool.
thanks again for everybody for showing up. It's been absolutely wonderful.
Thanks a lot for having us. It was great being here. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.